Shalom, this is Nizama Shalhamadabar Yasharal on my channel Nizama the Hebrew Mystic Healer. Before I get started, as always, I'd like to show some love to my 3D kin, scattered to the four corners of this third dimensional earth plane of existence, the Hebrew Israelites, the 12 tribes of Israel. I'd also like to show some love to my cosmic kin, the Anunnaki Nibiru starseeds scattered to the 12 dimensions of this universal egg matrix. Much love and shalom to you as well. And as always, show some love to my viewers, especially those of you who are subscribed. If you're not yet subscribed, please do so now. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. Also, if you like this video, give it a like. So this is a video on Draco, very misunderstood constellation and placement. And I'm doing this video, I've been meaning to do this video for a while actually, but I'm doing it now because I did a poll recently and I found that the majority of my viewers that voted wanted to hear about Draco next. So here it is. So Draco, I want to cover the misnomers first. And I want to say that I absolutely do not agree with the notion that Dracos are negative polarity, that they're evil, anything like that. As I always say on my channel, every being, every starseed, every being in general has a potential to make choices that either lead to their soul growth evolution or the opposite. So it doesn't matter what starseed you are. You're not good or bad. You just make choices that can either hurt the soul evolution of yourself and others or help the soul evolution of your soul and others. It's that simple. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, some of the different Draco forms that I've seen both in my own akashic records of incarnations I've had and those of clients I've dealt with are as follows. So you have your stereotypical, more Western-looking dragon, which typically will be one of the royal caste, and this is one particular type of draconic being, so there are others. You have the Ling dragon, or the Chinese-looking dragon, and that's also on the higher end of things. And then you have the bipedal dragons that have the wings and often will have horns, indicating a noble birth as well. If they don't have horns, it also has to do with gender, but it really has to do with nobility as well. So these particular bipedal dragons are part of a noble warrior caste. I've seen these as well. Then you have the type of draconic beings that are more hybridized. So you have the hybridized avian-looking draconic beings, which look similar to the bipedal dragons, except they have more feathers on them. Their wings tend to be feathered. They may have feathers on their head. They may have feathered tails. Some of them may even have like almost beak-looking faces, but they'll still clearly look draconic. So there's that type as well. And again, going back to the serpentine, more Chinese Ling dragon, there's also the feathered serpent dragon also, which is in Draco as well. And then you have the more reptilian looking or the more stereotypical reptilian looking beings. So these are actually more rare than you think. Although I have seen quite a few in Akashic readings, but I tend to see them more in Orion and Sirius than I do Draco. You have the orc, or that's what I call them anyway, because that's what they resemble, the mythology of the orc, which are very hybridized draconic beings and actually very common. So these are actually more common than the other draconic beings that you would see, because these are at a lower density and they're more involved in a lot of the mythology, with, like, for example, Lord of the Rings, or you might see them in D&D games. Don't laugh, guys, because D&D actually has a lot of mythology mixed in there. And there is more truth in mythology than there is in his story or the narrative that those who write the history have created. So there's those beings as well. Now, you also have the human lines, which have distant draconic relatives, or those dragonborn or fireborn human lines as well. An example of this would be like in Game of Thrones with Khaleesi or Daenerys, for example. So these are all extensions of the Draco draconic beings that you might run into. So specifically, when I tune into my own particular records, what came up was 3 distinct beings. Well, technically 4 distinct beings for me. There was the feathered serpent form. There was the bipedal dragon form with the wings, wearing armor that was very like almost advanced armor from the Middle Ages or Arthurian court ages, I would say more accurately. Then there was the avian-looking bipedal draconic being and the Chinese ling dragon. All of these dragons appeared within my own records from Draco. So now 3 of those dragons spoke to me about Draco specifically. Now the bipedal dragon spoke to me that they are of the noble warrior caste. Now the energy of this dragon or this ancestor or this past incarnation, however you want to explain it, very quiet, very serious, very like dangerous, but very noble. So that is the vibe of a lot of the bipedal dragons of the Draco constellation. Then the avian hybridized bipedal dragon had more of a messenger type vibe. They seem to make pacts or be indentured servitude to other beings or some of the gods. I've seen this. You can see this play out within the Akkadian and Sumerian culture and the Babylonian culture and Chaldean culture as well. I can't remember the name of these beings, but I'll definitely show a picture of them in the slideshow as I'm doing the video. And so that type of being showed up as well in my records and was basically saying that, again, they're very noble, and these particular beings, they never left. I feel like they've been here the whole time. Now, the Chinese ling dragon looking being that I have as an ancestor within my records said that these particular types of Dracos deal primarily with the ley lines. And what's interesting is you see these dragons as a benevolent force within the Oriental traditions, right? And so they usually deal with rainfall within the Oriental traditions, but they do deal with the draconic current or the balance of the universe, the creation and destruction current. Well, specifically what I got is these dragons deal with the ley lines too. They try to keep the ley lines imbalanced on Mother Earth. And that was what they do. That is why they're here. So that was cool, being able to talk to that ancestor. So that basically is a nutshell of what I have seen come up within myself and what I've seen come up in other clients regarding more of the orc being or regarding more of the traditional Western dragon beings. Also, what I've seen come up is more serpentine, Naga-looking dragons within Draco as well that look similar to the Naga beings, or even look very similar to some of like the Fae that I've seen as well. And again, there's lots of different types of hybridizations that have taken place. A lot of dragons that started out in Draco came down into the earth and the elemental realms to start helping and start incarnating there to work on certain things. And so that has happened. And Draco is a very prominent constellation within the celestial realm within our skies because it completely circles Polaris, and it literally is over the majority of the sky when you look up from certain points in the horizon. Now, what are the traits of Dracos? So, in general, noble warrior. They follow a code. They're very, very serious about their code of honor. You can see this play out within, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Dragonheart that was out in the 90s, but there was actually a dragon in that movie that was called Draco. And in the movie, he talked about when dragons died, their souls returned to the constellation of Draco. So showing that that's where they're from. And in this movie, those dragons were very misunderstood, and people hunted and tried to kill them, except for those that had made pacts with them, that understood, and they were from certain human bloodlines that understood that the dragons were guardians of Earth, guardians of the celestial realm, and guardians of humans also. So I thought that was really cool. I thought of that movie when I was, meditating on Draco. So what kind of traits would a Draco Starseed have, or somebody who has a lot of prominent placements in Draco? Well, they're going to be very protective of those they love and themselves. They're going to be warriors at heart. So it doesn't even have to be physical or violence, although they will be prone to join the military or join the police force or join politics, things like that. But they, in general, are just very protective of those they love, very protective of causes. They will go to war over a cause they believe in, over protecting a core value system, over protecting themselves and those they hold dear. They will also always want to correct misnomers, especially about them. They get very upset about that. So that's another thing. Now, celestially, when you're dealing more of the higher dimensional Dracos, they're keepers of the celestial wisdom. They're, guardians of, the celestial ley lines. When you deal with the dragons that are a little bit lower in dimension and deal more with the elemental aspects of Draco, then you're dealing more with the elements. And usually you're dealing specifically with fire when it comes to the Dracos. Not to say that there aren't other draconic beings that deal more with other elements, but with Draco, it's usually fire. Sometimes it'll be the storm element, but usually it's fire. If you're going down into the elemental realm within Draco. And the thing is with the Dracos, when you get down even lower in density, this type of protective nature may manifest in them literally hoarding or them wanting to hold on to things for their own sense of security or safety or protection. They'll tend to be loners. They'll really like the safety of their own home, and they'll want to create their home that's like a safe, sacred space. They may even their home might even be cavern-like in some ways, might be secluded. They might, even draw back their curtains so people can't look inside. They might tend to be kind of reclusive in that respect. I'm not saying all Dracos are like that, but that can be one of their tendencies. Again, warlike, warrior-like. They're very in tune to the cycles of nature. They're very in tune to the natural laws, the spiritual laws, the draconic currents, the ley lines on the earth and of the universe as a whole. And they try to remain in constant balance. They try to be zen, but if you piss them off, they will resort to scorched earth policy more often than not, depending on the type of Draco you're dealing with and how evolved they are. But in general, they're not to be trifled with, and they're wonderful guardians, and they're very invested in humanity. They're very invested in the universe. And they're very curious about the direction that things are going. And they're very protective over Mother Earth, and they're not happy. The vibe I get is they're not happy with a lot of what's going on right now, as far as how humans are acting toward the Earth Mother. So that is really what comes really strong to me from Draco. So in the celestial sense, they're keepers of wisdom. So those who have a Draco prominent placement or Draco Starseeds may be able to effortlessly tap into celestial or past ancient history or wisdom. They may be able to access certain aspects of the akashic records within themselves and others easier than others. And again, they may be very protective. They may like to collect things, especially crystals. They may really love candles. They may be drawn to fire, be drawn to elements in general. They will have a tendency to be drawn to the occult. They'll have a tendency to be drawn to meditation techniques. They will have a tendency to be drawn toward martial arts and wanting to get involved in causes or the military. So these are just some ways that you can sort of identify a Draco. Now, you get the Dracos that are really quiet and really withdrawn and keep to themselves and don't like drama, don't like mess. They're very wise and quiet. And then you get the Dracos that are more, silver-tongued. They're good with politics. They're good with speaking or writing and communication, but they're still very serious about their causes and what they believe in and what they're willing to fight for. So that's how I would describe Dracos in a nutshell. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you feel like you might be a Draco Starseed or you might have Draco placements, definitely hit me up. I do, as you guys know, Akashic Records. I can find out for you. Definitely click on the link in the drop-down menu to my Facebook page, facebook.com/The Hebrew Mystic Healer, all small caps. Or you can check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Nizama, the Hebrew Mystic, because this will be so you can access your own Akashic Records as well.